Hey guys, this is Jana, and we are in week 5. I cannot believe it. This session is flying by, but I sure have been enjoying it and enjoying our readings, and this week was no exception. I'm going to start off talking about the Bauman book, chapter 7, on promoting the show. I thought it was kind of funny. I looked at the copyright of this book, which was 2017, and still, I think the suggestions of the ways to promote a play are a bit outdated. Can you believe it? Outdated. It's 6 years old. That's a kick in the teeth, isn't it? Not to say they weren't good suggestions. Um, I still do posters and flyers, but to that, I would add social media advertising. My theater club has a Facebook, a X, whatever, Twitter, and an Instagram, of course. The kids seem to mostly be all about Instagram these days. The Facebook's more like for the parents, so they know what's going on. But the kids do posts approved by me, and they come up with lots of creative ways to um, get attention, and have all sorts of fun promoting our shows as well as our club socials and other events. Um, I usually don't promote doing anything on the phone, especially after COVID, just because they all sunk down into the interwebs. So I usually discourage that, but I do use that medium to send out positive advertisements for the show, and it works. Um, what else? I guess moving on to chapter 5 in the Catron book, the people of the play. Um, Boy, right off the bat, there was a quote: finding a character's objective is the single best approach to studying the play. And I couldn't agree more. I spend an incredible amount of time with my students, both in class for classroom assignments, as well as in, of course, rehearsal for the productions to help them understand how to discover their character's objective. Like, what is the objective? What is an objective? And what is my character's objective in the different beats and moments, and how to fight for those um, objectives within the play. And I related, there was another quote where the person was like, I see the characters in my head, and I picture them in their lives. Um, and I related to that quote to once I've read a script 2 or 3 times, I begin looking at the characters for their motivations and intentions and therefore objectives. And it is a lot. It is a lot going on when you're directing a play, and your mind is constant. It's eating, sleeping, breathing the play. The audience members go and see shows and enjoy the magic of being enveloped in a story, and they have no idea how much time and energy and work has gone into the direction of it. I mean, they're not supposed to be aware of all of that, um, but it's quite a thing when you do realize just how much goes into it all. Of course, if we didn't already know through the course of this reading these books in this class, we definitely do by now. Then on into chapter 6, which was the idea of the play and thought, and I absolutely loved this chapter. I've never used the term thought to mean the message of the play before, so that took some getting used to in reading this chapter and then the subsequent chapter. I liked the term, the play's argument, though. That made me imagine the playwright devising ways to make his argument in to the world that comes to see the play, of why the story goes the way it goes. Um, I found the list of questions that a director has to ask themselves before selecting a play to direct very useful and important. I mean, I've been hired to direct shows that I didn't select before, obviously, but then I can still ask myself these questions once I've been hired as if I did select it. But when I direct, of course, in the school, I get to select the shows that we do, and I try to pick shows that I feel are relevant to my students, to a current event, um, or just the world at large, from important events that kind of help shape our world. Um, I believe that people go to the theater or movies or turn on the TV in order. I think it all boils down to they we go because we don't want to feel alone. When we watch someone else going through something, be it comedic or terribly dramatic, either way, we feel less isolated in the world. Like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. Somebody else has gone through that, and it's interesting to see how they dealt with it. So, picking a show that I think is relevant or important for some reason is very important to me. Oh, I liked the way the authors laid out the meaning and differentiation between subject and theme. I thought that was very helpful. You know, really solidifying the definitions. The subject is the answer to what is the play about? That's the subject of the play. It's usually abstract, like a one word, like it is a story about justice. It's a story about revenge or compassion or destiny. It's a story about love. And the theme of the play is the attitude or the point of view about the subject. And it's usually listed like in a sentence. I really loved how those two words were defined. I thought it made it very simple, and it would be easy for me to explain it to my students. That way I think they would get it. The discussion of delving more deeply into the playwright's life and body of works really stood out to me. Of course, that would help in determining the thought of the play. Yeah, but I never looked at it that way before. And so I thought that was really interesting, and that thought stood out to me. Something helpful that I can use in the future because, as I continue to teach, I will continue to direct and working with these kids. Um, the last chapter that we read or that I read, Catron's chapter 7, the language of the play, where it talked a lot about diction. First of all, Lord Tennyson's quote, "Words, like nature, half reveal and half conceal the soul within." I just sat there, and when I read it, I just looked at it and thought about it. It made me consider subtext. I think that I know that it's talking about diction and everything and why, but I really felt like it captured the idea of subtext too. I thought that was a great quote. It made me think, and that's what I love about great quotes like that. Um, oh boy, I think a lot of people misuse the word diction. I'm quite certain. I know that I have in my life. I took classes called voice and diction. And so it's just kind of assumed that diction meant articulation or enunciation. But the writers of this book clearly want us to understand that diction is not enunciation, but the playwright's choice of words and phrases. It's not the way we say them, it's the choice, the use of them inside the story. I thought that was awesome. And it is amazing how many things this one directorial choice affects. The diction in a play distinguishes characters, each character from the others, and it highlights their backgrounds. The words used, we start as an audience to glean where they came from and what they do. It supports the thought of the play and evokes imagery. Um, and with the right performer, the turn of phrase, the diction in the play, can be aesthetically pleasing to the ear in the audience. I thought it was very interesting how it mentioned Ernest Hemingway was constantly in search of the perfect sentence when he was writing that perfect, beautiful sentence. I could imagine that. But then, how playwrights avoid writing the perfect sentence or line because it would distract the audience. They would be taken out of the story because they would be thinking about this perfect, beautiful line. I thought that was so interesting. And also how it also could be untrue to the characters and the choices the actors and director make. So, where a writer, like a novelist, is in search for this beautiful, perfect sentence, a playwright is like, no, 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 is a totally different idea of the use of words and phrases, the diction. I loved reading the passage from Riders to the Sea. I'm fairly musical, so the idea of rhythms or cadence used on lines is understandable to me. Also, I'm currently directing The Trojan Women by Euripides, and there is much keening and wailing in that very tragic Greek play. I've spent a great amount of time recently working on the rhythms with my students who are young people in this modern time. So it just doesn't come naturally to them. And when they finally started getting it, it made such a huge difference. I'm I'm actually really proud of the work they're doing right now in this Greek tragedy. I get so excited. In fact, here in just about 15 minutes, we'll be getting ready to start rehearsal for today. And I'm really looking forward to it every day because they're doing such a great job. I loved the section on what diction does to create character. The lines and descriptions from Fiddler on the Roof were fun. And I love Fiddler on the Roof. And as I read it, I could clearly hear the cadence as well as see how it emphasizes the character. Um, it's also a great example of times where actors have to repeat lines or repeat similar lines and how they're challenged to make them different or give them some variety that makes sense to the story. And the discussion of silence. My students are so afraid of pauses and silent or quiet moments on stage. They always think they have to fill them. And so they keep rushing in. And sometimes it's part of the rhythm. And, I'm just constantly assuring them that if they fill it, they fill that pause or that silence with a movement or a gesture or intention in a facial expression, the audience won't know. It'll be perfectly fine. Um, I could go on and on, so I'm going to wrap this up because I've already gone longer than you probably wanted me to. But suffice to say, these chapters are really awesome, and I've really enjoyed them and enjoyed watching your videos as well. And I hope that you guys have a great rest of the week. And I can't believe it, but we only have 2 more to go. And actually, this is my last one in the program, so I'll be graduating, and I can't believe that either. So excited. Anyway, bye. See you guys again soon.